It is week 14 of the 2025 NFL season, and this is Captain, my captain, Club Fantasy's DFS Showdown breakdown of the NFL primetime games. In today's video, we're focusing on this Thursday night's matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions, and we're breaking it all down next. Welcome into Captain, my captain here on Club Fantasy FFL. I'm your host, Joshua Hudson. He is our DFS expert, Austin Amendolia. Please, if you're liking this, or if you're listening to us and watching us over on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of the content we're putting out here at Club Fantasy. If you're listening to us over on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform, hit the follow button so you never miss any of Austin's DFS advice for the rest of the season and going forward. Of course, hit the link in the description of this video and you can come and talk ball with us and get all kinds of additional DFS advice over in our absolutely 100% free Discord. All right, today's video, we're focusing on the Dallas Cowboys versus the Detroit Lions. It is the Week 14 Thursday Night Football matchup. Both these teams played on Thanksgiving, and they said, you know what? We like when you guys play on Thursday, so we're going to keep this train rolling. Austin, let's start with our first category. It's going to be Captain Chalk. These are the chalky captains that everybody is likely to pick because, let's face it, they're just that damn good. And I got to tell you, 86 yards or whatever it was last week, Jahmyr Gibbs really knocked it out of the park on Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah, coming off of a 50-point.
We're not talking about that one, Austin. He's been under 20 fantasy points 2 of the last 3 weeks.
I know, but I think people are still going to remember that 50-point performance. They're going to say, you know what? That's a captain. No, in all seriousness, this is like the chalk pick if you're not playing the quarterbacks in your captain spot, because we know quarterbacks will be the most highly rostered in the captain spot. So it's Dak Prescott and Jared Goff will be highly rostered, but I think people are going to go to Jahmyr Gibbs pretty significantly as well because of the potential upside there. But I will say, part of the reason I wanted to talk about Gibbs here is I do think it's a risky bet to play him in your captain spot. And I think there are really great opportunities to get off of him this week. I think, people know Jahmyr Gibbs. They say, oh, he's a pass catcher. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. And in the DraftKings app, it says that Dallas is the 22nd best team to go up against. This is a great matchup for Jahmyr Gibbs. My. The thing that DraftKings loves to do is to keep those season-long trends up there, because in the past 4 weeks, the Dallas Cowboys have allowed the least fantasy points to running backs of any of the 28 teams that are playing this week. And it is all thanks to one Quinnen Williams that they traded for. And since then, they are suddenly much more talented against running backs. So I will be avoiding Jahmyr Gibbs, but he is still likely to get steamed up roster percentage wise.
The one thing that I do like about Gibbs here is the likelihood that Amon-Ra St. Brown misses this game. Jahmyr Gibbs now becomes their underneath option, especially because they don't have a real starting tight end here. So I think you're going to see kind of similar to 2 weeks ago when he had that 50-point blow up, where he had 12 targets and 11 catches. Like, that's the kind of value where I think Jahmyr Gibbs comes into play, is what he's capable of from a receiving perspective. And of course, DraftKings, we know, is PPR based. So I think he fits more in the realm over there on DraftKings. So, but like you said, the Dallas defense is good. Like, their front seven has gotten a lot better. Adding in, obviously, Quinnen Williams. They brought in Logan Wilson from Cincinnati. But more importantly, they got healthy. And that was the other thing that I think people kind of, and again, coming from an Eagles fan, I don't want to say this because I hate the Cowboys, but call a spade a spade. Like, they've gotten a lot better. They're not the same defense they were the first 7 weeks of the season. That said, their secondary still sucks. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. So let's get to our next category. It's the Mutineers, the contrarian captain choices that offer some variety and upside in larger tournaments. So because I love shitting on the Cowboys, let's talk about Jameson Williams, because I love me some JMO this week.
Yeah, it's a really good matchup just for the Detroit Lion pass catchers in general, and honestly on both sides of the ball. Both of these teams have been allowing the most points to the receiver position over the past 4 weeks, which is really astonishing and says that we're going to get a lot. It's also the highest over under on the entire weekend. It's 54.5 point over under, so lots of scoring to go around in this game. I have Jameson Williams in here because if Amon-Ra St. Brown plays, he's likely to be the one that is more heavily rostered than Jameson Williams. People, I think, still see the boom bust nature of Jameson Williams and want to shy away from him. I want to lean into that because wide receiver 2 often is just as optimal as the wide receiver 1. Obviously, play St. Brown too. Like, I'm not saying don't play St. Brown, but between the two, Jameson Williams is probably going to give you the better chance to get different in your lineup, and which will help shoot you up the board that much more quickly.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that I do not think that Amon or St. Brown plays this week. The plus side for really both of these teams on the injury front is that this isn't your typical Thursday because both these teams played last Thursday, so they do get a full week of practice versus the limited like 4 days heading into the game. So, but no, like Dallas, I believe, is getting Trayvon Diggs back. That's a good thing for Jameson Williams. People need to understand this. Trayvon Diggs is one of the worst corners in the NFL and gives up big plays like he's handing them out at Halloween or candy. Like it's ridiculous. So yeah, love me some Jameson Williams this week. And quite honestly, Dan Campbell loves Jameson Williams and wants to get him involved in this offense. And now that he's the play caller, I think we're going to see a big time Jameson Williams game this week. But on the flip side, the Detroit Lions secondary is a little banged up. They just put their starting corner Terry and Arnold on IR. So sign me up for some CeeDee Lamb this week, baby.
Yeah, especially because I feel like in recent weeks, like George Pickens has been the more popular receiver. People have been like, "Oh yeah, George Pickens finally having the breakout."
Didn't he cost more last week on DraftKings?
Yeah, he did. He did for the Thanksgiving slate, and so I thought it was a great time to go to CeeDee Lamb last week. I think it still is this week. They're now more they're almost identically priced. CeeDee Lamb is just barely ahead of him on this contest, but I still feel like people are going to say like, "Oh, I'll save $200 and play George Pickens. He's been the better receiver anyways." And I don't know, like CeeDee Lamb, like we've seen him have 10 catch, 100-yard, 2 touchdown games, and I don't think George Pickens like takes away that possibility for CeeDee Lamb. So I like seeing him as the kind of get different option here, assuming people are going to play more George Pickens. But again, this is a similar deal as with the Detroit Lions side. They're both great picks in your captain spot. So they're going to be, I think you are going to see a lot of different people at the captain spot this week than maybe you typically would. Like I played the New England Patriots, New York Giants Monday Night Showdown slate, and it was like 30% captain was Travion Henderson. Drake May was like another 20%. So like half of your captain rostership percentage was between two different players. I don't think we're going to see that in this contest, but I do think that between Lamb and Pickens, Lamb is going to be the more contrarian option.
All this to say, get Dak Prescott in your lineups because Homeboy's going to feast today or on Thursday. Yeah. Anyway, our next category, first mates. Every captain needs a reliable crew. So these are going to be your standouts that help you maximize your lineups. Let's stay on the Dallas Cowboys side here. You've been getting very kicker friendly here, and it's going against my morals because, fuck them kickers. But it's kind of hard to argue with arguably the best kicker in the NFL in Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing about this slate is it's easy. It's hard to get some of these to buy into some of these mid-priced guys on the slate. There's a lot of really high-end guys that are going to be expensive. They're going to be exciting to play, and then you got to figure out your punt options. So it's likely you don't necessarily need to attack this range in your salary, although I think that would be all the more reason to do so because it's a way to build your roster differently. And so if I'm looking in this price range, I mean, the person that sticks out to me the most is Brandon Aubrey because he's reliable. I know he's going to get some action, and he has the potential for 15 plus fantasy point games because of how much they rely on him and how willing they are to kick field goals when other teams would not want to kick field goals because of his wide range. So he's pretty safe floor, and given how condensed the target tree, especially will be on the Dallas Cowboys side, like once you get outside of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, like a lot of players are going to maybe touch the ball a couple of times or not at all. And so at that point, like Brandon Aubrey becomes the other point getter for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, all that to say, just avoid Jake Ferguson at all costs. Dude has been absolute trash since week 8 in fantasy. He's the tight end 22 in points per game. Just throwing that out there. Does not match his salary one bit. On the flip side, let's talk about the other running back in this Detroit Lions tandem, David Montgomery.
Yeah, so while it is a bad matchup for the Detroit Lions because Quinnen Williams is now in Dallas, and that has made them better at defending the run. I do think David Montgomery is an interesting play on this slate because the way he gets his job done anyways is via touchdowns. And I do think that the Detroit Lions do score touchdowns in this game. And so I could see him getting a couple of goal line touches. It's kind of like not in line with the idea of like this is the reliable crew of the section because he's kind of like the upside play, right? He might score you a couple of touchdowns and get you there that way. But again, it's like in this price range, it's really tough to find guys that you can really count on. I think David Montgomery is more reliable than the other players at around his salary range. And to me, if you're not playing Jahmyr Gibbs, there's a really easy pivot by playing David Montgomery instead, because, I think Gibbs is still going to be rostered by half the field. And so if you play Montgomery and Gibbs doesn't get there, then you could have just gained a lot of leverage on the field.
Yeah, and all that to say, David Montgomery's definitely had a very disappointing 2025 in comparison to his last couple of seasons here with Detroit. So, yeah, Austin, I'm with you. This section really is not sexy on this slate at all. So let's go for those punt plays. These are what we call the deck scrubbers because they're cheap and they can make your lineup based on one play and limited opportunity. Let's talk about Brock Wright. He's filling in the Sam Laporta role, not seeing near the volume, but he's still involved.
Yeah, not seeing near the volume that we would see with Sam Laporta. This would be a great time to play Sam Laporta if he were healthy right now, frankly, because Dallas has also been giving it up against tight ends. But Brock Wright, I mean, he's a cheap replacement. He is, I think, still technically listed as questionable, although I think it's likely he does play on Thursday. And so you do need to keep an eye on that. I don't know that I'm pivoting to another tight end. If Brock Wright sits, I think I will probably just stick with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams at that point. But if Brock Wright plays, I think he has the best chance to be able to outperform his salary. Even if he just continues to get 4 or 5 targets, if he does that and a touchdown, like that's going to be totally fine and acceptable to me. And with this being a high over under at 45.5, I'm expecting a lot of scoring, a lot of back and forth. And maybe Jameson Williams and St. Brown score all the touchdowns, but I think that they're going to want to get some other guys involved, and Brock Wright is top of the list among them.
Just wait for that Penei Sewell touchdown catch from the 1 yard line. It's going to screw everything up.
I looked to see if they would let me play an offensive lineman, and they won't. So
shame on you, DraftKings. Shame on you. Let's talk a little bit about Kevontae Turpin. He's operating as the Dallas Cowboys wide receiver 3 right now.
Yeah, and this is the epitome of the section of like making a big opportunity out of limited play time. That's Kevontae Turpin. He has these big plays. He'll either sometimes return a touchdown or kick for a touchdown, but even on the offensive side, they have tended to do some interesting things with him over the past couple of years. There were times last year where he was like the most exciting wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys outside of CeeDee Lamb, which is like, okay, when you're saying that, it's not really a great thing, but for fantasy, I'm here for it. And that's the thing with Turpin here. I feel like there's a world where the secondary is so easy to pick on that Turpin breaks one open, and people are all in on Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, but then Turpin shows up and vultures a touchdown with a big play. So to say, I think he should be in your player pool for the situation. I don't know that there's other wide receiver 3-4 options for the Cowboys that I feel comfortable playing in the slate, but Turpin really fits the bill for that because of that big play potential.
Makes sense to me. All right, friendly reminder, you can play these DraftKings slates against us. Hit the link in the description. Head over to DraftKings, join our league, set up, and get going. Each contest is $2. We do the Thursday night slates. We do the Sunday full slates. We have some fun, people. Come and take our money. It's fun. Join up. You'll love it. All right, our last category, the Kraken, the lineup trap that sinks the ship. We've talked a little bit about Amon-Ra St. Brown and whether he will play, whether he won't play. So how does this affect Isaac Tesla?
Yeah, if Amon-Ra St. Brown plays, Tesla is definitely a trap play in my mind. If he does not play, I become more interested. Or if Brock Wright sits, I become a little bit more interested in playing Tesla. But I feel like it's this thing where he got a ton of hype in the preseason. People were really excited about him and like, oh, he's about to be the sleeper that you need in fantasy football. And he's had like 3 weeks where he has more than 0 points. and one of those weeks was last week. He's very touchdown reliant, and I don't think he's someone you can count on. I feel like it's going to be easy to look at and go that direction, go towards him in this context specifically because of how easy it's been to beat up on the Dallas Cowboys secondary. But I feel like it's too shaky, and I could easily see him having another 0 point performance and them just focusing on dump offs to Jahmyr Gibbs, getting a couple of first downs with Brock Wright, and then taking deep chunks down the field with JMO and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Tesla just kind of goes out and runs routes.
So if St. Brown sits, I personally think that they're going to use JMO a lot more in that Amon-Ra role where they're going to move him around because he has that versatility. Tesla has been more of a big play guy, which kind of fits in the backup, Jameson Williams role. So really, he's not changing skill set, really. He's still being that big play option, just seeing more targets. So, and coming in at a much cheaper price than Jameson Williams on a normal basis, right? So, like, that's why I think that if Amon-Ra St. Brown sits, I like the idea of Tesla because, again, you're bumping up from like 1-2 targets to 5 or 6.
Yes.
And if he catches 60% of them, all right, now I've got 3 opportunities to score a touchdown because that's where they target him is in the red zone, right? I don't know. I like the value. If Amon-Ra St. Brown does not play, plain and simple. But also, too, keep in mind, Khalif Raymond is also questionable for this game. And if they're down Khalif Raymond as well, I think Tesla has to be more involved at that point.
Yes, I agree with that. The injury report would say a lot about how you attack the slate.
Correct. All right. Friendly reminder, if you're watching us over on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of our content. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform, give us a follow so you never miss any of Austin's DFS advice. And of course, you can always hop into our completely free Discord where we talk all kinds of ball, fantasy football, DFS, dynasty, you name it. We talk it because we love it. Check back Friday mornings for Austin and Ryan on DFS Academy, where they break down the full Sunday slate of NFL action. He's Austin. I'm Josh. This is Oh Captain, My Captain. See you guys next week.